1, 2,
Standing
go.
by.
Everybody, you're listening to and possibly watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy heavy homo to listen in or possibly stream in.
But you can be.
But you can be. But you can also cannot be. Well, you might not be.
We have options.
We have all sorts of options.
Juggling options.
Oh, it's been a few weeks, fellas.
It has been.
It has been.
Yeah.
It does my heart good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back at you. Right back at you.
100%. So how was everybody's Thanksgiving? Because that's American Thanksgiving happened last week in right now time. So how was everybody's?
All right. It's okay.
Sorry.
So what's the plural of Thanksgivings? Is it like Thanksgiving? Like what's because we had to do 3 different ones.
I can't contemplate that.
3 whole Thanksgivings.
Yeah. So
Lord.
had drove an hour and a half to my adoptive families and did Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving Day with them. Had a day to rest, as God intended, and then on Saturday drove about 2 hours to Roger's family. Their place, did Thanksgiving with that whole family. The next day did Thanksgiving with my whole family, which is about an hour away. So lots of traveling, lots of food cooked, 2 turkeys, 3 racks of ribs, about 50 jalapeno poppers, giant things of mashed potato. I mean, just was cooking for days. It was all delicious. My heart is full. Got to see lots of people, but I'm tired. So
A lot of tryptophan, a lot of.
I was grill daddy. It was great.
I saw those pics. I saw some of the pics, and if you're not following Caleb on Instagram or Blue Sky, or Facebook, I mean, seriously, you had me drooling with all of the food that was being prepared. Usually have it when the brisket is being done, but this was everything. You had plenty of food pics out there making me jealous.
Man, the only thing I was disappointed in is one of my turkeys and some of my ribs. They were delicious. They were great textured, moist. It was just fantastic. But for some reason, I don't know if it was the rub I used or the type of wood I used to smoke it. It came out really dark. Like if you look at the pictures, like I had somebody said, "Hey, like was your turkey really burnt?" And I said, "No." It looks dark. But it was wonderful. No char on it. It just was good. It just was black. Like I have no idea if it was the seasonings I used because I make my own rubs and seasonings and stuff, or what. But yeah, that's the only thing I was upset with.
So it was just all dark meat.
Yeah, it was just in color. It's just that wasn't that nice like red turkey that I wanted, or red ribs and like that crispy brown turkey. But it was delicious.
Nom 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 nom.
Welcome to Cooking with Caleb.
Recipes after the show in the show notes. Bill, what'd you end up doing?
No, we just stayed in. We just stayed home. Yeah. And it was the first bird in the new oven.
Nice.
So we christened it, I guess, that way. Or
how'd it turn out?
Yeah, and it turned out very good.
Fantastic.
And it was not. I got a lot of rest this weekend. A lot of rest. Things have just been going a mile a minute, and it's going to continue that way until my last day of work for the year is the 12th, is a week from today. And it's like I'm working like 3 weeks worth in 1 week.
Yeah.
It's just, but it was the first year my company gave us the Wednesday before Thanksgiving as a holiday. And that's common when the big four, if one of them does it, the rest of them do it. They're very keeping up with the Joneses. So I do think that may not have started with us, but I think once they saw that, either Price Waterhouse or one of the others were doing that they follow suit. But yeah, it was kind of a quiet one.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the quiet ones are good.
That's not the worst thing. That's not the worst thing.
You had the opposite. You had the bizarro Thanksgiving to my Thanksgiving, and I'm jealous. I'm still catch up.
Well, before I go into what I did, Victor Rose.
Hello.
Evening Victor. So Jason and I and both of the dogs drove up to Indiana to visit my brother and his family, and my parents also came. So packed house with the kids and with all the dogs and everybody. And on Thanksgiving Day, he put us all to work, so we all kind of contributed to that. I made casserole. My mom made some bread. My brother did the turkey and additional bread, and Dad made mashed potatoes. It was just like a lot of people working in the kitchen, which was great. And very efficient. My brother was very efficient in getting us in. Like, okay, this is your time in the kitchen. This is your time in the kitchen. This is your time in the kitchen. Yeah. It all turned out really great. So it was fun. But we left on Saturday to drive back to Charlotte, and it's to drive back to Winston-Salem, and it was a good thing because about that time, everybody in the Great Lakes area, or at least eastern Great Lakes area, was getting 30 to 60 inches of snow, and highways were being closed and rerouted, and traffic was insane. So we left on Saturday, and although we missed my brother's brisket because we left early, we were able to get home in 10 hours instead of probably the 15 that it would have taken us on Sundays.
And
it's a long drive.
For both Caleb and myself, Thursday was a very good day of football.
It was.
Yeah.
So
this
season's obviously not going. I don't think the season's going the way that either one of us really wanted it to go for our respective teams.
No, but I can't believe our division is as strong as it is.
Oh, you guys are.
It's insane. It's insane. We're third in our division, and we may clinch a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Before, like, in week 16.
It's a meat grinder. Like, it really is. And at least for my team, the boys, like, obviously we're not having a good year. Obviously, I mean, between just suckage and then also health problems, people being hurt, we're on our backup quarterback. Not a great year. But we beat two of our division rivals back to back with a backup quarterback. So even if we're having a shitty year, like, that warms my heart. Or where my heart should be, because I hate our division rivals, just out of pure sportsmanship. So I don't actually hate them, but it's division rivals, so you want to win those. And so the fact that we beat the Washington or whatever their name is now,
Commanders.
Yeah, we beat the Commanders, and then the Giants back to back with our backup quarterback. That's a win. Like, I'll take it.
The Giants. Oh my God. I mean, there's so much focus right now on the Jets because it's a bigger marquee name that's, sinking the ship. But the Jets, I mean, the Giants, geez, it's just they can't make a right move. They cannot make a right move. Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's Philly, so.
These are all football teams, right?
They are.
Yeah, ain't that cute, Steve? Ain't you? And are you gonna say sports ball next or some shit?
Foosball. That foosball that you boys like to play.
Yeah.
Watch.
And I did record store.
Well,
day.
actually, I
did the Black Friday record store day. Yeah.
I saw.
Yeah.
How long did you wait in line?
By the way,
not long. I mean, I got there, and there were two people online.
Oh.
And I stayed in my car for a while because it was cold enough out,
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I decided to get out of the car, there were four people online, and then I was the 5th. And I got everything I was looking for. If
That's
I went
excellent.
to another record store in the area, I mean, people there like seriously like do overnights and shit. I mean, it's insane, and it's like to the point that at Princeton Record Exchange, it's been a safety issue.
Yeah.
That there is a line there all day long. And the thing is, the store that I go to, which I've promoted on the show, Randy Now's Man Cave. He used to be farther south in Bordentown, moved the store up, and it doesn't attract the same lines. It's strange because they're so close together. And I think it's like a nice kind of secret, I'm also interested to know what happens further up north, because a major store, Vintage Vinyl, closed a year and a half ago. And I wonder where those people go now. They may, some of them may be going to Princeton and not even know, but I'm not going to let them know. I want my nice little lines there. But Randy had everything. And the thing is, with Record Store Day, you can't pre-order.
Right.
You can't pre-order. It's against the rules. And there are record stores that have been denied participation in this because they do that for their customers. And we all know what goes on, to some capacity. But what this record store did was to the regular customers, he sent out like a poll of what things are you looking for, and then he based the orders on that. So if it's up around your regular clientele, it was a nice way to cater to them, without busting the rule, So though I went there, I wasn't guaranteed the 4 items I was looking for, but the odds were in my favor because I was there early enough, and he stocked up according to the poll. So
that's good.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So we have a really good local store here. Unfortunately, I was not in town, or not able to go do Record Store Day stuff. I wanted to. I got to do some small business Saturday stuff. But the cool thing about their local record store here, though, is anything that they have left over for like any of the Record Store Day special editions and stuff like that, that he just puts them in a crate and like holds on to them, and he'll sell them, break them out sporadically. So you get to go get some cool stuff. Now, I haven't even looked. I did not even have time to look and see what any of the specials were for Record Store Day to see if there's anything that I might have missed out on. I do know, and shout out to a mutual friend of ours, our buddy Ray. He's one of the managers of Amoeba Records in Berkeley, and he regales me with his Record Store Days adventures, and usually keeps me up to date. And usually, if there's anything that I might have wanted and missed, he will make sure, if they've still got a copy, he'll make sure I get it, which I really appreciate that. He's a great friend and a great dude. So good person to know.
Yeah. If there wasn't anything that I was like salivating, that I had to have. But there was a nice selection. I think the big one that people are talking about is the Doors live album, which was already released on CD, but apparently they found, the technology when they released that in 2000 isn't the technology that's around today. So with like noise compression and other advancements that they've made, apparently the vinyl version is like the best documentation of the Doors live ever.
Really?
Now, yeah. So that's been the one that a lot of people are championing of the releases that came out this time. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you were talking about that in one of our chats with mutual friend, and there was some hesitation on some previous releases that may not have been as good, like maybe
because they were like bootleg level, some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. But this one, it was a live from Detroit concert.
Live from Detroit.
Yeah. Which that's pretty cool that they're able to re-release it, and
plus it was also a situation where they got to do 2 sets, so it's pretty long for a Doors show. So that's nice. Yeah,
cool.
Oh, Mr. Mojo Rising himself.
Cool.
Yeah. I'll save it for the the geek gets, but I did get something that was not a record store day thing at record store day. It's kind of ridiculous, and I'll show it to you.
Yes.
I'm looking up at it right here. Oh, but we're going to be talking about comic books because that's what this show's about. Comic books with the comic book bears. And it's bears that talk about comic books. So, gotta spell it out sometimes. Usually we
the sad thing is you're not joking. The number of times we've had to explain, no, we're a show for bears.
I know we talked about sports for the first 10 minutes, and then we talked about politics for the next 45, and but this is like kind of like this is a little bit of our therapy.
To be fair. Yeah. To be fair, when I tell somebody I'm on a podcast that's for bears or run by bears, they look at me and they go, "But why? Why are you?" I'm just like, well, you got like I'm bear adjacent, so
yeah. But also, Caleb, if you weren't follically challenged in this place, we know you'd be like fucking ZZ Top.
I'm so pissed that genetics robbed me of the option. Yeah. Like it frustrates me to no end.
Yeah. I mean,
big old beard.
There's always like both Steve and I, we can't clear bareness on the chest. We just can't. Nah. But the face we did well. But there's also like, I mean, a lot of the friends I grew up with are cue balls at this point. And if I ever want to piss them off, I just go ow, ow, ow. So, and we're okay there. We're okay with the hair.
We have good hair collectively.
We have good hair.
We have good hair. We have collectively good hair. We might have the best hair in podcasting. Like
there you go.
Can we claim that? Can we say that we've got the best hair in podcasting?
Certainly out of comic books. Certainly out of comic book podcasts.
And we can claim anything.
I mean, there's some of those shows you shine a light on the heads and you'd be like, Some of our friends, but
we love them. And hey, we love a cue ball. We like Like, I mean, if I can't grab you by the hair, I can at least grab your forehead, pull it back a little bit.
No, there's something to be said for that too. But when they piss you off, ow, ow, ow.
Just slap a sticker right on the back of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was scratching my hair when you said that.
My hair was itchy. There's so much of it.
Were you saying something? Let me get my hair out of my ear so that I can hear it better. Yeah.
The pettiness.
You'll learn how to flip your hair like we learned in
bitches. Yeah.
A sort of woof.
So anyway, comics. We're almost back on track.
Comics. Well, we do have a bit of news.
We do have one bit of news. So just to throw in that old thing, here's the news. Okay, and if you were listening to the audio thing, we'd have like a little jokey thing. But anyway, it was announced, and this is also something I want to talk about because it's hard to gauge this now as an outsider. They did announce that the biggest selling comic book of the year was Absolute Batman #1. Which sold over 400,000 copies, which initially was reported as 1 million, but was 1 million in revenue, which is great for one single comic book to bring in 7 figures. That's fantastic. It doesn't matter who that is in the industry. It's great for the industry when that happens. And again, that was Absolute Batman #1, and good on that. What I was about to say is, now that we no longer have the Diamond 300, it's really hard to gauge where things are. I know that there's some platforms that do their guesstimations. I wish they would do something along the lines of the old Comic Reader, which used to poll comic stores, and they would do and their chart would be supposedly representative of the greater sales, at least in terms of the direct market. But no, that's good to see because we've had a couple of years with some pretty unimpressive sellers.
Well, and it was good, I think, with this one because it only took about 6 weeks. The number was 400,000 at the 6 week mark, and that's including the initial run and the multiple reprintings. because I think it went through second and third printings before it even hit the noir, black and white version, which was a special edition that they put out as well. So that's pretty impressive in 6 weeks, because you have obviously the Transformers comics have been selling very well over at Image. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the most recent one, has been selling pretty well all year, but it's taken the most of the year to hit those hundreds of thousands of units sold. Whereas this, it took just a month and a half, and here you go, you've got this pretty high sales number. Go on.
I was going to say, it goes back to what we were talking about a couple weeks ago. At this point now, the Nick Dragata's artwork for Absolute Batman #1 sold complete. Or I don't know if it sold complete, but it all sold, and it sold for like $300,000. Like the man made $300,000 cash in one afternoon by selling his artwork. And Nick Dragata, I've met him, great guy, could not be happier for that man. But you also mentioned Transformers, and another amazing artist, DWJ is such a good dude. I love seeing these I love seeing the spotlight be on these artists and stuff. And what it all amounts to is Felix Liu just Scrooge McDucking into a pool of money. As their art rep. That dude is just he's collected such an amazing stable of talent, and they're just making their mark left and right. It's fascinating and baffling and wonderful all in one. So it's a good feeling. Artists are making money, comics are selling. Batman is cool. Like it's a good time to be around. Which I have not read this yet, so I need to read it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're starting to do a little bit more of, we're doing these little, sort of like mini recommendations that you can see on our YouTube channel, on our Instagram, as well as on Blue Sky. But one of the things that I'd thrown up a couple weeks ago was Batman 1 and Absolute Batman 1 and 2. I read them back to back and just I was very happy and excited to continue reading those. And I'm not a Batman. I'm not a big Batman guy. So like the fact that I picked these up and really, really enjoyed them, it was a surprise to me. But I mean, the world building was great, but I mean, it was a really interesting interpretation of Gotham and the people of Gotham. Because, Snyder's playing with all of these. You could tell he's probably been wanting to take these toys in his toy box and just shake them up for the past 15 years. And now he actually gets a chance to do it. And I mean, everybody like Dragata, I have to say, if he wasn't drawing comics, he'd probably be doing like bar illustrations for gay clubs. Because dear Lord, the meat on his boys, these guys are huge. Even freaking Penguin is all super jacked. And you're just sort of like, why? I'm gonna go with it. Sure, let's do this. Yeah, like why not? I'll go with this. But I like how he's changed the dynamic of Bruce Wayne in relation to the other players in his world, where there's some petty crime going on in there, but he's actually buddy with some of these people, and his mother's still alive. Like there's Alfred has nothing to do with the Waynes and is an assassin for an international organization. Possible League of Shadows, but it's it's fascinating, and it's exciting, and it's a great way to introduce the Absolute universe for DC, because it was the first one out of the gate. And then we had one.
I do have an Absolute book to talk about for one of my books, so I think we can table some of this conversation, because there are some threads that link the book in tone, and Steve, especially as you've read some of this, I would like to see if we're on the same page about what's cool about that. Yeah.
I've got this on my pile to read after we record. So Wonder Woman 2.
That's cool. So I'm still waiting.
I have exciting news kind of related to this. I don't have these issues, but I got my first DCBS order in today.
All right.
So
yay!
First DCBS order came in. So, recently I decided to cut the cord and I closed my pull box at my local comic shop. It just was getting to be the point to where I was spending way too much.
Used to these, brother.
Yeah, well, mine's not even that thick, guys. Like I'm not joking when I say I did a culling. I'm only getting about 7 titles as far as monthlies go now. I'm gonna grab trades. I was saving them up. I was enjoying it more. It's just not. It's not worth it to me anymore to wait on the monthlies. I get more pleasure from sitting there reading the whole thing. So I've switched up the way I've read. Yeah. I've saved money, and that's been a big boon, and that's made him and there. So it's changed, right? But yeah, it's really cool. So between DCBS and then cheapgraphicnovels.com, I'm still reading, but I'm saving money, and that's a good feeling. So, and I'm getting the opportunity to because I don't have so many new titles coming out every week. It's just
overwhelming. It is so overwhelming.
And for somebody like me who has borderline OCD, right, that just has to do things right, my day is ruined. I'm getting the chance to breathe a little bit, which is nice, and I'm also getting the chance to go back and read some of, like, right now I'm going through and reading the Namor what are they called? Just those little black leather books from the Masterworks editions.
Masterworks.
Yeah. I'm reading the Namor Masterwork editions. I've got the Hulk ones. I've got several omnibuses I'm getting a chance to read. And I was worried at first. I was like, if I'm reading these big tomes, I'm not going to have anything to talk about on the Bears. And that's, to be fair, that's not been true so far. So I mean, it's a good experience, and I do feel more relaxed. It's become a hobby again, which is nice. Which is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, Steve, I don't think you ever promoted this feeling, but, certainly Caleb and I have both been in enthusiasm ruts at points.
Yeah.
Fairly recently, fairly recently. This is the point. I was missing DCBS orders.
Well, that's inexcusable, boss.
That's insane. If you told 2010 Bill Zanowitz that was happening, he would have been like, no.
Well, like I said, I think a lot of it was, and I can't speak for you, but for me, a lot of it was, I'm getting 16 titles a week. I've got to get these things read. I have got to read these, and I've got to read them fast. And I don't want to read these things fast. I want to take my time with them. I want to digest them. I want to look at the art. I want to break down the art. I want to perceive it. And because that is what art that's what you should do with it. And I wasn't getting that enjoyment. So books that I'm probably going to go back and try to reread and enjoy, I will probably spend more time with and find something more to like about it.
The only thing I will say in terms of the enthusiasm deficit that exists sometimes, I did have a situation this past Saturday, where I went to a local store that had, now seriously, like, of the three of us, I'm the one that's still like a back issue bin diver. And
I do some, I have,
you do some, but you ain't like me, brother.
No, for sure.
And I did do it, but it was also, I just stepped back and I was like, was that really the best use of my 2 hours and 45 minutes?
Right.
Was that really the store? I mean, the store's great. I got a short box full of stuff. I mean, basically like $180 worth of comics for $20. I mean, it was a great, it was just great deals. And if you saw on the videos that I provided, there were even Silver Age books.
Yeah.
But I also wondered if that was necessarily the best use of my time. And, we've talked about this on the show, for me, comic books was always a very solitary thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas sports and music, was always a shared experience. And I'm retreating a little bit too much into that now in real life. Because, what would it have been to call somebody local and say, hey, you want to meet me at the shop? And it's something I haven't been doing. And I think some of it is maybe like a hangover from COVID. But at the same token, it's like, some of the best things about having hobbies is, sharing the hunt. I mean, there's nothing better when there's 3 people looking at a bin and one finds something for the other person. That's like the best feeling. You feel like an archaeologist or something, and I think I need to dedicate a little bit more to that. I think I've been a little too solitary on some of my behavior when it comes to some of the hobbies. Yeah. But I recognize that, and I think that's positive. But
because it gives you something that you can look at changing if you want to, and you know kind of like what makes you happy.
Yeah.
When you're
and it's like I felt I didn't feel like a winner after that.
Yeah.
And cons, you always get it because there's
you've got friends
sharing it. That's there. But in terms of the day to day, I think I have to dedicate a little more emphasis on when I can for that to be a shared experience. Because it's just more fun that way.
I think that's a good. So that's an interesting phenomenon. Roger, my husband, and I were having this conversation in a different context. About not only us but some friends of ours, and it was somebody who's like they're having a hard time because they don't have any friends in real life, and I was like, well, look, I totally understand that, but you've got to make a concentrated effort to go out where people are to meet them where they are, right? So when I've moved around a lot, I've been in cities, so when I want to make friends, I'll pick a gay bar and I'll go to it every weekend and start to meet people. I will go to the comic shop and just hang out and introduce myself to strangers. I'll go to the gym. I've got friends at the gym now because I'll just say, hi, I'm Caleb, and those are things that you have to put a concerted effort into doing the same thing that you would do online. Now, we all became friends online. We all have these very large groups of online friends that come from comic books and come from the podcasting communities and things like that. There are people that I would drive to help. I mean, and have, right? There are folks that I think dearly and I talk to every day, but I can't reach out and hug you every day, right? So I do think it's important to also build that community around yourself. And as much as our communities are important to us, be it the comic community or the queer community and stuff like that, those things cannot only exist online. It is necessary to the health and well-being of our communities, ourselves, and just the environment and the messages that we want to send out, that we foster and we build those things in real life. Right. And
right. Also with that, I would not limit that to my sexuality.
No, I don't. Right. Sports, sports, the same thing.
I would not limit that to my sexuality. I do think it's important that, and I do think the advent of social media and the internet has not actually been beneficial to a lot of gay culture.
Yeah.
It's kind of ghettoized it in a sense. Maybe ghetto is not the proper parlance I want to use, but it's more compartmentalized now.
Mm-hmm.
You dial up your kink, you dial up, and I don't know, there's something far more rewarding about a shared experience than, even connecting on a solitary basis. It's just, it's not as valid.
Yeah. No, and I think it's so, like, I don't think you're wrong. I also think it's diluted it in a lot of senses. In if your gay culture only exists online, and again, it's not something a part about your day-to-day life or anything like that, and everybody can see it, everybody can comment on it. It's just, people come in and out of it, and then it becomes just a thing that exists for everybody, and it's no longer just a niche culture. Then I do think that is that I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. The more people who can see it, the more normalized it is good, because people shouldn't be ashamed of who they are and what they do. But also it becomes a thing where you don't have groups anymore. You do see gay bars closing because it's just bars now, and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's a catch-22. It's a weird circumstance. I certainly appreciate it because it's brought a lot of value to my life. Case in point, I'm talking to 2 of my best friends who are living in whole other parts of the country. About the things I love.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, I did want to say, speaking of community, we do have Cliff on comics.
Hey, Cliff.
Hey, fellas, he says. I hope I'm working my way up to friendship. Well, our hearts are always full for with room for more. So there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, that's I mean it's all good points, and I think funny enough, I know we probably talked about before. We could probably have a whole episode on it, but you could probably use the gay bar analogy for the comic store, the LCS experience.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people, again, got into this hobby and were able to maintain their connection to people within this hobby in person at their LCS. But, people move around, people stop going to the stores, and that community kind of dissipates as well. And the stores close, and there's really not a place for people to go and hang out and talk about nerdy comic bullshit, which, hey, come listen to our podcast while we talk about nerdy comic bullshit, but comic geek bullshit. But, at the same time, being able to do that in person with people that you meet when reading comics or getting into comics, I mean, that's kind of irreplaceable in some cases. And, posting on forums is a great way of, of maintaining that and meeting people as well. But sometimes getting that experience in person is pretty tough. And it is great to be able to do that at conventions. So that's why, if you've never been to a comic convention, if you, if most of your interaction with other people in the community is online, go to a comic convention, even a small one. If you've got a small local one that's like a one-day show, just stop by, see what it is, talk to guests, talk to vendors, and get to know some of the people that.
And it might not be for you, but the next one might be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. There's
might
so
not
many
be
different
for
shows
you, but the next one might
that have many different feels to them.
The first one you go to, it might be a dud. It might be, as we talk about on this show, La Bamba.
La Bamba.
But the next one at the same venue may be a totally different experience.
Absolutely. Oh, and speaking of also our large community, James Figueredo, good evening, you handsome gents. Good evening, you handsome James.
All right, we've got off track here a little bit.
We pontificated. That's quality.
Yeah, we did, but you also have to understand people that we weren't expecting to have another multi-week gap between speaking. So we got to get this out of our system. Yeah. So I think we should start talking about comic books.
Let's do it.
I think I'm going to go first because I have one of the more marquee titles. How about this? I'll go first and I'll go last. That sound good?
Like a Bill sandwich.
Yeah, it's like a Bill sandwich. Yeah. Mighty tasty bread.
How's the meat?
Okay. Well, here's the first slice. We're talking about Absolute, and it's Absolute Wonder Woman #1. So, Steve, I think you have some graphics that we can.
I think I do too, and I think they're taking some time to process.
Oh, that's not good. But anyway, I can talk about what transpires in this. And I got to say, if you're a Wonder Woman fan, this has been a great year between Tom King on the main title and now this, written by Kelley Thompson with rising star artist Hayden Sherman on art and amazing work supplementing all this by Jordi Belair. Some fantastic artwork, some fantastic storytelling. Again, Steve was talking earlier about Absolute Batman. On the last show, I talked about Absolute Superman. And the thing that I really like about these stories is, you have these characters that are in very different circumstances than we're used to them seeing. We're used to seeing them in. But the true essence of who they are still comes through. Batman's parent, I'm not even going to say it's spoiled because you already talked the mother soul up. Batman's parents don't die in the alley in Absolute Batman, yet he still becomes Batman. Superman's origin is way off from what we're used to, but he still becomes Superman. And here we have that same situation with Diana. And who is Diana in the Absolute Wonder Woman world? Well, she didn't grow up on Paradise Island. In fact, she is the last Amazon. She was taken she was the last one born on Paradise Island. She was taken by the gods because you all know the Greek gods are moody bitches. And Zeus decreed that they would take Diana and she would be raised by Circe, in hell. Okay, Cersei is doing time because of all her witchy, wondrous ways. Apollo brings forth Diana and just basically leaves it with Cersei, like, here you go, you raise this kid. Zeus decided that's how it's going. He's pissed off at the Amazons. This is how he's going to punish them. Here you go. And Diana is Diana, and in impossible circumstances, instead of being at the mercy of demonic beasts, she charms them. Some become her pets, some become her friends. Even Cersei was initially just going to discard Diana and leave her to the fates, but no, that's not the warmth that Diana radiates. It even flowed out in hell. So Cersei raises her as her mother, but there's one word that cannot be said, and that word is Amazon. Cersei can't even say it because when she does say it, it doesn't come out correctly. But Diana's not under that impression. It is not under that problem. So what we have is a bit of a time jump, and they go in and out. So we know that Diana was raised in hell. We know that Cersei was her surrogate mother. We know that she's able to cast some spells because of Cersei's abilities. And what we have here is there's Steve, if you can go over to the next to one of the next ones. So we open in Gateway City, California, and I love this that we're still in the DC tradition of fictional cities in real states. I love that. So Gateway City has this object hanging over it, and all of a sudden there are these creatures known as the Harbingers that just start attacking people. But who's there to defend the earth? Who's there to defend these people against that? That's Diana. It's the hell-raised Diana. Steve, if you can go over to one of the next ones there, and she's riding what would be a Pegasus from hell. Just a skeleton of a winged horse, and Diana's got a sword. She's got this kick-ass armor, and she repels the Harbingers. She repels these gross creatures that, for some reason, have decided that they're going to take over this area of California. So we have 1 foot in man's world, let's use an old Wonder Woman term, and 1 foot in fantasy, and it's a perfect balance in this issue, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely love this, and I can't wait to see what we have upcoming in the Absolute universe. Here we have her preparing for battle: beauty, grace, compassion, kindness, all while she's creating a death mask out of blood. And this is where she's telling the U.S. forces that she's got this and just says run. And that's another thing that I think that we've seen so far in the Absolute books is this great balance between origin storytelling and action. All 3 of these stories have tremendously well laid out action sequences in them, and I'm surprised how much I'm enjoying all 3 books. But that's the first book I wanted to throw out there. Absolute Wonder Woman #1.
Well, I will second everything that you said about this, because I 100% loved the first issue. I think it was a great reintroduction to Diana as a character. Having her being raised by Cersei is like, totally like one of her oldest and greatest enemies, for decades, being essentially her mother and, her foster mother. And actually, the way that they show the relationship, it is a strong, positive relationship. She is raising her the best that she can because she wants to. She's not like, stupid Amazon getting my way. Like the dynamic is completely different here. And I love that. I love the little vignettes that were shown on the page, and just the the development of Diana, but also the action 100%. Actually, it's exciting. The artwork is extremely dynamic. It's extremely cinematic. Like there's
it's widescreen. Yeah, it's widescreen.
Yes, it's widescreen, and that's what I think they were really pushing with Absolute, was like, we are going to have widescreen comics for this.
Yeah.
Like this, it's not just the DC version of the Ultimate Universe.
But that
Marvel,
was the best. That was particularly Ultimates. That was the best aspect for me. Was the balance in. I think Ultimate Spider-Man had it a little better in terms of balancing story. The human story against action, at least at the outset. And then the Ultimates was just fantastic action sequence. And my God, they were so well provided. And I'm glad we have the DC version of that. And it's very much the DC version of that. There is nothing Marvel about these 3 books.
No. Well, and it's interesting because at least the 2 of the artists on the Absolute books, be it Nick Dragotta or Hayden Sherman, like if you listen to them in podcasts or interviews and stuff like that, they'll both talk about the influences they pull from. And I think Nick's is a little bit more apparent as far as the manga feel, but Hayden's is there too. He brings a lot of that. Both of them will talk about how much they artists like the gentleman who drew Akira, Berserk, those kind of classic manga influences have had on them as artists. And I think, Daniel Warren Johnson, same boat, there's a feel there for it. So I think there's something to be said about them bringing that kind of kinetic energy to their work. With the big swords and the oversized armor and stuff like that. Now, I said earlier, I haven't read any of the Absolute stuff yet. I want to, but when I think about these characters, when I hear about stories that kind of like you guys are talking about that are related to these iconic characters, stories like Red Sun come to mind, right? Like to me, the purpose of these stories and what makes them work is that they do have to say something. They have to be different in the way that they are presented, but they have to say something about those original characters, right?
Yeah.
About those, or like you have to read that and see how it reflects on the character that or the character that you grew up with. And so it does sound like they're doing a good job with that. They're using these stories to be a mirror, a black mirror, if you will, and reflect something that is saying something about that original character. And I really appreciate it because you have to know the psychology of those characters to do that.
Without the constraints of the get it through their hoop and leave Elseworlds.
And I think the thing here that is always the danger when they have this kind of thing is that you get the Carnival Barker kind of like, this ain't your father's Wonder Woman, or this ain't your father's Batman. It's like, it is, as Caleb said, like the heart of the character is still there. What makes the character in archetype in itself is still presented. It's contextualized differently, and it's given a different freedom to express what those characters stand for, what those characters well, you're not shackled past 80 years have meant.
I was going to say, you're not shackled to 80 years of continuity. And I love continuity. I think continuity is great, but that's also fun when you get to do something like, when that's what made What If so cool, right? I mean, you just like, ooh, we can play with this.
How's this character act when you do this to it? Like when you throw them into this situation. And we've got James also has a couple of things to say. Great year for Wonder Woman indeed. Absolutely, James. And then he goes on to say, I was so skeptical of Absolute Wonder Woman when it was first announced, but it managed to completely hook me, and the second issue is even better. And I was flipping through the second issue just a few minutes ago, and talking about the widescreen comics feel of this. I mean, some of the images and the layouts, the design of the panels are unique and just beautiful. I mean, there's so many different ways that the action is presented in different symmetries that just makes it feel unique and makes it feel exciting. So,
okay,
cool.
All right, Steve, I don't even know what books you're talking about this time. So,
well, due to Due to being busy and having a lot of driving around time today, it basically came down to a choice of, well, what have I read in the past couple of days? And I can tell you what I've read. And I want to throw up actually two books, because we were talking about, we have a lot of issue ones. We have a lot of stuff that comes out every week, and every month.
Yeah.
And sometimes those monthly books fall by the wayside. So the first book I'm going to be talking about today is a book that I've talked about maybe 2 years ago and has been a continuous title, and that is Department of Truth. It has
Okay.
been quite some time since I've talked about Department of Truth, and there's been a lot of wackiness and craziness. And this book is one of those, kind of like the old Vertigo series, back in the 90s, that consistently, when you check back in, if you've been out of it for a while and you check back in, the storylines still drag you in, even if they go off in different directions, which they have been. They've been exploring more some of the players and their histories in the Department of Truth, which, if you haven't read any of this, quick background on this, co-created by James Tinian and Martin Simmons. It tells about a shady, shadowy department in the U.S. government that investigates and tweaks and controls and sometimes kills basically collective imagined things. So think Bigfoot, think moon landing conspiracies, think flat Earth. All these things are investigated, are manipulated, are destroyed or encouraged by the Department of Truth. And of course, there's also a rival Department of Lies from the old Soviet Union that comes into play as well. But just conspiracy theories and cryptids and all that stuff all get thrown together in this mix when you're following very specific people's specific agents within the agency. This is issue number 27. Issue number 27 goes back in time to the late 50s, early 60s. This is actually the second issue concerning this, with one of the agents, Huck, who in the present day is essentially a double agent working for another shadowier organization that's fighting against the Department of Truth, a group of black hats, essentially. But this goes back to his origins. This goes back to when he was first starting with the agency. And one of his first big assignments is trying to figure out this Norma Jean person. Norma Jean, who we may know as Marilyn Monroe, was, of course, a larger than life, in many ways, actress in the in the 50s and well, mostly the 50s of Hollywood. And if you've listened to any historical podcasts about it, if you are a silver screen aficionado, you might know a lot more about Marilyn Monroe than I do. But there's some iconic things about her that everybody seems to know. There's a collective mythology that exists about her. And this, in Department of Truth, that is trouble. Because the Department of Truth in the comic, as well as the fictional agency, deals with mythologies, deals with common beliefs and manipulated ideas about anything. And what better thing or potentially cryptid adjacent creature than a Hollywood starlet? Who these people are, what they do, what they get up to, the gossip, the career trajectory, the rumors, all of that sort of creates and builds this figure that may or may not be in any way connected to the actual person that it embodies. And Norma Jean is finding as herself, and she gets a lot of chance to explain herself and who she is, when Huck, who's the agent, gets to talk to her, that even she doesn't know where this creation of Marilyn Monroe begins and her own Norma Jean-ness ends, and whether she's the creation, she's the fiction, or Marilyn's the fiction, it all becomes intertwined. And Huck is confused by this, and the reader sort of goes along with that, but it becomes more and more apparent that this is a little bit dangerous. That there's something about her existence that is a little tricksy and a little potentially something that could burst Hollywood's bubble, just because she is so much of a giant figure something has to break. So essentially, in this issue, he is ordered to find a way to kill her, to end her, her being in order to, tamp down the fiction. And I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it's extremely wild and bizarre, and may or may not kind of coincide with what we do actually know about Marilyn Monroe and about the truth around her death, or the lies around her death. But it's very well written, and this is, Department of Truth is consistently good. It's consistently, goes beyond sort of like the basic, oh, this is just X-Files, but with big ideas. It's just so well written, and James Tynion the fourth is the continues his writing duties on this one. But the art is actually by Allison Sampson, who I'm not too familiar with her work, but it's beautiful. It's dreamy. It's hypnotic and hallucinogenic. Everything's wobbly and weird and strange and sort of flows into each other. And this is one of those things where the colorist and the letterer have so much to do with how the art is presented on stage. And on the page. So Jordi Belair in colors. Jordi Belair is everywhere, but she does an amazing job here. Just so many bright colors and mixes and strange, watercolor almost brushes that sort of wash the whole thing. And then also Aditya Bidikar is on lettering, and there's so much in here that plays with who's talking. Who is, is it Marilyn Monroe speaking? Is it Norma Jean speaking? Is it the woman with the crossed out eyes speaking? And sometimes you're not really sure what's happening. The woman with the crossed out eyes is, of course, or the excess for eyes is a figure who repeatedly appears. Is she evil? Is she part of what makes mythologies real? Is she an enemy? Is she a friend? Is she really secretly pulling the strings? We don't know. But this storyline, and this is actually the second part, is just, it's exciting to read. And I love that kind of stuff. I love something that sort of fucks with your idea of like what plays with conspiracies that we've all heard and presents it in an interesting way on the page. And I think JT4 is really doing a great job here. And his co-conspirators on this book, art-wise, which has changed over time. Martin Simmons, of course, original artist on this, but other artists have had a chance, especially with Allison Sampson right now. I think it's really it gives me those classic late 90s Vertigo vibes.
Yeah.
Gives me some Morrison, gives me Morrison Doom Patrol. Like there's just so much in this that just sort of has it pulls those strings for me, and I love it. So I'm not sure if you guys have been reading this or have read any of the.
I only ever read the first issue. Yeah, I only read the first issue.
I am going to try to get the first trade very soon. I want to read this. That artwork reminds me, like with the color on it, it goes a different direction, but the line work itself reminds me a little bit of Steve Lieber. It's not as maybe cartoony as Steve Lieber would do, but it's kind of got that type of.
And she plays with it too. I mean, the artwork is not consistently always the same. Like she does structure, some of the layouts very differently, but then it just goes sideways in beautiful ways. And the art and the artwork, the coloring, the lettering. Hunter S. Thompson makes an appearance in this, and that appearance, those panels are manipulated and squished because he's clearly high on something, and when he's talking, he's ranting about drugs, and you're like, the art does just as much, pulls just as much weight as the actual dialogue. So.
Steve, can you throw up that graphic that you had on before?
Which one?
The last one you had with the 3-panel.
Yeah.
Right. This is also a lesson of when to lightly ink.
Yeah. Less is more.
Yeah, this is really is a case of less is more, and you do see that. It's just wonderful choices.
Well, and trust your colors.
I don't even have to. Yeah. I don't even have to know that, like anything about this storyline. I get a flavor of what this story's about just from these 3 panels.
Yeah,
I get the feel of it, and that's a very rare talent.
It's, I mean, Allison Sampson, I definitely would follow her to other books, just, from the strength of her artwork alone. And, I know I read tons of James Tinian stuff, not everything. There's so much out there, of course, because the man apparently doesn't sleep, but, kind of like Tom King, you're just like, how many books has he written this month? Like, what's going on? But I think that Department of Truth has been one of those consistent, surprises and enjoyable reads. And I've been reading it consistently since it came out. There have been a couple times where, maybe, like Caleb, like I let it stack up a little bit so I can read a bunch more, all in one go. But, I find myself going back and just like reading it monthly and waiting the 30 days, sometimes more, depending, until it comes out again. And it has gone on a couple breaks over the past couple of years. So, there is time for people to catch up here and there. But I love it. And I keep recommending it to people. And it's one of those things where, we don't just read all number ones or, miniseries. Like we have some favorite books. We have some books and series that we follow all the way through.
Absolutely.
And this is one that I want to kind of bring up and say, hey, getting the latest number one, getting the latest new series is great. Supporting those artists, supporting those writers, wonderful. But sometimes, if you find a book that you really love, stick with it. Stick with it and enjoy it, because it might continue to surprise you and continue to give you something to love. Or it might disappoint you horribly, and then it ends up like, well, I'll never read this again. But, this is one that does not do that to me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Caleb, you have a book you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a number one in a miniseries.
Woo!
So I will start off with, I got a number one not too long ago, saw it, looked cool, liked the artwork, previews did its job, so I went with it. And that book is a book called Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, which is a hell of a title, and it works really, really well. And I don't know, between this and what was the book that kind of just wrapped up? That was the Jason Aaron book. That was another post-apocalyptic thing where the two figures kind of fell in love and lived a life that was also, walking through the apocalypse or something. So,
Once Upon a Time at the End of the World.
Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. I'm bad with titles, by the way. I don't know if I've mentioned that. But this book, I saw the cover, I saw samurais, I saw cowboys, and falling in love on the path to hell. I said, yeah, let me check this out. And I'm really glad I did. It is written by Jerry Duggan and Gary Brown, art by Gary Brown, color by Chris O'Halloran, I think is how you say the individual's name, with letters by Joe Savino, published by our friends over at Image Comics. So the first issue as you're reading the first issue, you're not real sure what this book is going to be. You are first introduced to one, there's kind of two main figures in this book, at least as far as the first issue, but you're introduced to a cowboy, right? You're introduced to a gentleman named McCraith, and he's in Los Angeles, and he's been chasing down these people who've got more money than God and had a lot of power and have wronged him in some sense. And so he's chased them all the way down to a church. And he walks in and just, lets them know the business with his 6-gun, as good cowboys want to do, and just is merciless, right? But he takes a bullet to the gut. And then it shifts over and it takes you all the way to the other side of the world, across the Pacific to Japan. And he introduces you to a character, a young woman named Ogata Asami. And she's a samurai. She's been trained in Bushido, although most women weren't at the time. And this is kind of right in that era that we see from, shows like The Last Samurai and stuff like that, where the Western world is kind of infringed on Japanese culture. Imperialism is kind of kicked up, and you've got the imperialists who are basically breaking the samurai culture. They are destroying that way of life, to the point that they're going and doing a sword purge, right? And she's been trained, in Bushido, and she's got honor, and she's just not having it. And when she sees them effectively murder her father, she loses it and just goes on a killing spree and starts another uprising that they know they're going to lose. But she's in the process of it and goes through, and she gets wounded, kind of like McCraith did. And the story culminates, as far as the first issue goes. Both of these kind of figures, they both kind of, after this bloodbath that they've been a part of, they walk out and they're sitting next to their respective oceans, and they look out and they see this weird island, and nobody knows what it is. And all of a sudden they're sucked into it. And they wake up. And when they wake up, this is kind of where issue 2 kicks in, right? And they wake up to this individual who's kind of this Maharaja type figure. He's an Indian, an Indian soldier. And he is not really what you might expect. And he kind of tells them, look, I don't know where you think you are, or what you, I don't, who knows what this place is. We all come from different cultures, and somehow we can speak the same language now. But you're not getting back, right? If you want to survive here, you better learn to be quiet. You better learn to kill in silence, and you better pay attention to me. Now, I'm not necessarily in charge, but I'm in charge. And if you want to survive, you need to come with me. And they're left with very limited options, because out of nowhere, all of a sudden, this giant spider dragon creature just emerges and tries to murder them. And they have to kill it and escape. And he's like, hey, that was great, but y'all made a lot of noise and the other baddies are coming. Issue 2 is them kind of getting to know each other, right? They're trudging. I love a good trudge in comics as they get to know each other. They're walking through this island, and he's kind of explaining the business to him. He's like, yeah, nope, this is your version of hell, my version of hell are different. I don't know what this place is, but this is where the dead come back to life, right? And we've got to push back. And if you are either going to be bad at fighting or just unlucky, and you're going to join them. But if you stick with me, I've got another crew. We stay in small groups. We come together when we need to fight. We'll all get through this together. And they get to this one place in the island, and it's these giant cliffs with a waterfall streaming down them. And he's like, yeah, meet twins. Of course, when anybody says meet the twins, for me, I think of Lemmy. Nothing to do with that. I just kind of chuckled anytime I hear about the twins. And he's talking to him, and he's like, I don't know what you call this. We lovingly call this the river Styx, right? Except every once in a while, the river Styx goes dry. And once the river Styx goes dry, the dead can come across, and we've got to push them back, right? And so it's this weird zombie fight. And so you as the story goes on, and I'm not going to go past the second issue because I really think that you all do well to go read this. As the story goes on, you get this kind of odd purgatory. Is this hell? Is it not hell? Is it life? Are they dead? Are they dying? Can they get back? What does it mean? Obviously, from the title, you there's going to be some romance blossom here along the lines. We're going to see something happen, and they're going to have to deal with that. But it's a really fun story, and the story is only made better by the absolutely stunning art. I mean, it is just absolutely gorgeous. I love the line work. It is sketchy in the best way. The only thing that could have made it better for me was throwing some Zipatone, but Gary Brown doesn't do that. But he's loose, right? He's using a sketch style, and it is very anatomically correct. He has a very good eye for cinematography. He's building the world. He has the even the panel that Steve is showing right now, you get this absolutely gorgeous background. They didn't have to do that. I mean, there are ways that he could have left out all of the details in the background, but you get the quintessential Japanese architecture, right? You get the honor. You just the way that he has these people standing. It's stoic in a way, and he tells like Bill was saying earlier. There is a whole vibe, a whole story that is contextualized even without words. You can tell that something is happening here. That somebody is doing something begrudgingly, right? They are breaking, and this is somebody with power who's being warded over them. And it's wonderful. I absolutely adore looking at this book. I had a very good time reading this book. I got issue 5 in last week because I ordered it from Midtown Comics because, again, I'm trying to play catch up on some stuff. So I'm going to sit down and read issue 5 tomorrow, hopefully, to see what they're doing. This is going to be on my best of list for the year. It's really fun stuff. And it's at the end of the day, it's kind of popcorny, right? Like it's kind of something that I don't have to think a lot about. It's a lot of blood and gore with a little bit of like, hey, no, you need to pay attention to these things because there's a whole thing happening here. And it's cowboys and samurais and monsters, and who doesn't love that? So go check this out. I think it's worth your while. And I think Steve, actually, I think you've been reading this, haven't you?
I have, and I just picked up the 6th issue today, and there's some very interesting unexpected developments in this one. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I've been really enjoying it as well. I agree that the art at times reminds me a bit of Sean Murphy.
I can see that.
Punk Rock Jesus and other other works along that line. There's that kind of like that additional line work, the loose and the the less tightly packed lines for shading and for action, and there is something really interesting about that style. I really enjoy it. But yeah, I mean the whole setup of hey, here are all these warriors from all sorts of cultures and timelines and everything, just all in this weird kind of hell, having to fight and still fight, like after death, like they can't rest, they still have to fight, or continue to die. Like it's really, really interesting, and getting this relationship to grow, between people who are kind of stuck in this purgatory, is interesting, because like the motivations are a little unique, I think, in different from some of the different perspectives that we have.
And I love the way that Mohan explained it, right? He's like, you grew up with one version of hell. I grew up with 28. Is this purgatory? Is this the 29th level? We don't know. You were talking about artists that you reminded me of, or that this reminded you of. Reminds me of Richard Pace a lot from Second Coming. It reminds me a lot of him. So that is a good comparator, I think, too. So no, man, it's good. It's really.
Can you show that last page again?
Oh, sure. Where is it? This one?
Yeah, I'm going to throw out an old name here.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Grell.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Particularly in the way that the page is staged. Yeah.
Well, another thing I really appreciate. I mean, we're celebrating colorists too. I love the depth that O'Halloran put in this, because you can really the way that he shades that frontal figure and stuff, and has the back of it backlit. It's just good. It's good perception, right? It's good depth perception. It's another building block of this world, and it's just, man, there's a lot to celebrate about this book.
Yeah, and I do want to apologize for people who are listening. So far for this episode, I know we've been much better about it, knowing that there is an audio version and they don't have the benefit of having the visuals that we're projecting up. Apologies, but this has just been a very graphic heavy show. We'll keep doing as best we can, but sometimes the best route may be to just peek into one of the YouTube feed and see what we're talking about.
Or you can also,
just check it out and fast forward to the parts.
By itself.
You can also go to our Instagram page, because I'm going to post some panels from the books that I talk about, and I'm going to ask the guys to send me some, just even pictures on their phone of a panel that they enjoy, or I'll pull it from the.
Oh, baby, I don't know if you want the pictures on my phone.
You beat me. We'll talk.
Yeah,
later.
you probably do.
We probably do. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I will pull some of the panels that we shared in our super secret, totally exclusive Facebook Messenger chat.
Eliminators Club. What?
I'll put that on our Instagram page, and so if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I wish I could see what they were talking about, go there and you can.
Yeah, that sounds like a good tactic. Yeah.
We're trying. We're making it
cognizant of that. It was just as we were talking, I'm like, my God, we've really been talking about the art a lot.
It's a visual medium, though.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, comics. Hey, there's a lot of beautiful work out there, and we'd love for people to see it.
Yeah. Okay, Steve, you sort of have the mic right now. Why don't you tell us about another book you're reading and enjoying?
Cool. Yeah, I'll be hopefully a little bit quicker on this one with than I was with Department of Truth. But another book that I've been enjoying, and it is a mini series, but it's had 6 issues released so far out of the total 7, which is a little bit longer than some of the mini series that we've had recently. A lot of them they like to do just sort of a single story arc, anywhere between 4 or 5 issues. But this one is a 7-issue series, and it is Rick Remender and Brian Posehn's Grommets. I think I might have mentioned the first issue, I think, is when it first came out, just kind of as like a quick recommendation. But I've been following this one. I did not grow up as a skater kid in the 80s. I will tell you that. I know, shock. I would have been, still kind of toddling around. I would have been like 3 or 4 at the time that this book kind of takes place. But the way that this is written and the art are just, it's so fun and expressive. You feel like you know these kids. And it concerns, like the book itself is about 2 kids primarily. One is Rick, who has been moving around a lot. His dad's been, getting jobs in all sorts of places. His dad's a recovering alcoholic and addict. And so he's kind of been moving his kid around, and he's constantly having to go to new schools and find new friends, and it's kind of tricky for him. And then you have Brian, who is actually on the cover of this issue, issue number 6. Brian is kind of the regular sort of, lazy, kind of wasty kind of kid, who would rather sit around, smoke pot, and skateboard. Than do anything else, especially, go to school. Blah, it's for losers. And they hit it off pretty quick in the early issues. Rick and Brian bond over, skateboarding and just being sort of like, just being kids, being young teenagers, in California in the 80s, the early 80s. And just, it's filled with trips to the arcade, girls that they like and have crushes on, and other girls who are also really good skaters that they try to show off for. Like, it's just, you really get that feel. It's just a fun book for the first couple of issues, but real life kind of starts seeping in. There's some serious stuff that's going on in the background. Serious stuff that's going on with these kids, with their home lives. I talked about Rick's father is a recovering alcoholic, and he's still learning how to be a good father. And it's difficult when his kid is at this age. He's 13. He's going through puberty, being a rebel, trying to find his place. And the way that he interacts with his parents, I mean, they're kind of the enemy, kind of not, and he's not really sure if he's made up his mind yet. And Brian has, he lives with his grandfather, and his grandfather is this cool kind of greaser dude, who seems to also be going through the early stages of dementia, who can't remember that his wife, Brian's grandmother, has been dead for a couple of years. And so there's a lot of these things that start popping up in between all the fun times they're having at the arcade, with their buddy Mike, who's like a punk with the with the green spikes and everything, like, oh man, fight the system, anarchy rules, like all that stuff. Is all the fun stuff, but then like the real serious shit kind of starts bleeding through. And in issue 5 and issue 6, they're having a party at one of the girls' house, and unfortunately Hector, who's the quarterback, and the rest of the local high school football team shows up and start getting drunk, start swinging fists, and just harassing the girls and just being real big jerks. Rick and Brian decide that they want to start standing up to them. It is a horrible idea. This is no David versus Goliath where David wins in the end. No, they get pummeled. They get beaten to hell. Rick loses consciousness, and in issue 6, he barely comes to and has to get out of there because Hector starts brandishing a gun. Hector has gone wild. He's like, I'm going to show these stupid kids, these punks, I'm going to teach them a lesson, and grabs his gun. And it is mayhem. It is serious. And these kids are deep in the shit. And, there's a lot that's going on in this small miniseries that's about a very slim period of time in these kids' lives, but it's very believable. And it's kind of interesting contrasting with the artwork, which we've got Brett Parson on art duties and Moreno Davicio on colors, but Brett's work here almost reminds me of Mad Magazine or actually specifically Cracked Magazine in the late 80s and early 90s, just sort of like the way that he designs his book. And it's fun. It gives you a false sense of, fun. It is a fun book, but it gives you a little bit of a false sense of like where you think this book is going. And, you can tell it gets bloody. And this is the kind of almost cartoony type art that you're like, I'm not expecting blood and, blood and gore in this one, and really serious shit happening. I have a couple panels up right now where Hector is trying to break down a door, and he's gone crazy. He's got his gun in his waistband. He's trying to like get at Brian, who's the 13-year-old punk who just, who dared to like, tell him off. How dare he tell him off? Brian tries to respond in kind by finding a shotgun. It is a very serious thing that happens in this book, and there's only one issue left, and you're kind of left wondering what's going to happen with these kids at the end. But I recommend it. Wait until the trade, because the trade's almost out. If you haven't started reading this, but having a great time. And of course, Rick and Brian, the writers, have put a lot of their own personal experience, maybe not these exact experiences, into sort of the characters that they're writing here. So a lot of their history is skater punks in the 80s. So I don't know. Have you guys read any of this?
I haven't. No. I'm going to say something that people are going to like look at me stupid. I'm not a Rick Remender fan.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Hey, really? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
But
are you a Brian Posehn fan?
No.
Give or take. I like some of his Deadpool stuff. I don't care for a lot of his stand-up, honestly. But again, art and the art.
I'm glad he exists. He seems like a fun guy, but
and he's done great things. It's kind of the same way I feel about Chapel Roan. I appreciate that that's there. There's talent involved. It's just not my cup of tea. So I don't.
No,
just not
third rate new wave. No.
So you're not a pink pony girl, is what I'm hearing.
Fuck no.
No.
Oh fuck no.
So, but I have.
I think she can't even wipe Sabrina Carpenter's ass. I mean, this stuff is not even. This will not be remembered.
Hands have been thrown. There's going to be some responses.
There's a lot of entitlement there. There's a lot of entitlement vibe there now. I mean, I guess it's a nice story that she got dropped by a record label, and it was in a sense, a very organic rise. But I don't think the shit's that good. So
there
we go. The leap from Brian Poe, the only show that's ever going to leap from Brian Posehn to Chapel Roan. But there you go.
Yep.
I have less vehement feelings. I just don't. It's not my cup of tea. I've tried to listen to it 5 ways from Sunday, and it's just not something I can get into. And again, she's amassed a following. I think that's great. Some people gravitate towards her. She's got a message that people are appreciating, enjoying. Yeah. I like it when people like things. I like it when people fall in love with music, especially. So I appreciate her.
I like it when people like certain things.
I'm
not going to go that far.
I was joking with a group of my law school guys there, and I said, I think I'm the only queer in captivity whose Spotify Wrapped didn't have Chapel Roan on it, and Bill obviously didn't either. He did.
Let her do her thing. I mean, it's connecting with people, and it's it's not. It's I mean, I'm a 57-year-old man. It's it's not for me.
Yep.
But
and maybe that's.
I recognize that there are other performers in her wheelhouse that I think are far superior, in terms of output. There you go.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not a
third-rate new wave.
I'm not a pop diva guy. So it's just not my. Like I told him, I also
don't wear a Kiss shirt.
I'm wearing a Tom Finland shirt.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a black sweatshirt, so.
But that's okay too. But again, it's just not my thing. And I feel that way with a lot of Brian Posehn stuff too. It's something that and I was listening to Jim Gaffigan
I want to
on the
laugh
radio.
at it. Like, actually, I thought the thing I enjoyed him the most was Deadly Class.
Mm,
To talk about a Rick Remender connection.
yeah.
Yep.
And there's some Remender stuff I've enjoyed, but not to the level of
I think there's a lot of the credit there that I don't understand. And again, to each their own, right? There are artists that I wish Cullen Bunn was as beloved as Rick Remender is sometimes, because I think he's a far superior storyteller, and a story craftsman. But again, it's a different vibe. It's that's fine. I mean, it just is what it is. We all are going to gravitate to different things. So
yep.
Yeah, and I think this one, if you're not a Rick Remender fan, which you guys certainly are, but I think this one, what sets it apart from the rest of what Rick has written, other than the fact that he is, teaming up with Brian Posehn in this one, is that this is more grounded in reality. A lot of his books are, he's got crazy mad science in Black Science. He's got, teenage assassins in Deadly Class. He's got, sort of post-apocalyptic, sort of weird floaty science and low. Like there's a lot of stuff, some the fantasy of Seven to Eternity, all of this that's high concept. This is not. This is very much sort of like, this is gutter punk. Well, future gutter punks in 80s, like early 80s Encino. Like this is something that's very different. So, if you haven't read any Remender or any Posehn before, or even if you have, like, this doesn't really have anything to do with that. So this would be a very interesting place to, like, just kind of check it out. Not if you're a huge Rick Remender fan, like, oh, I'm definitely going to read this because I love Seven to Eternity. Like, this has nothing to do with that. So,
the way you were describing it reminds me a lot of Bully Wars, which was that miniseries that Scotty Young and Aaron Conley did.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing about Rick Remender that he is very good at is world building.
Sure. Yeah.
I have no affinity for Fear Agent. No affinity, but I absolutely recognize that the palette he created for that it's impressive. And I think that extends to, whether it's very mainstream work like Uncanny X-Force or, something like Black Science. I think he is very good at world building. I'd just rather spend my time on other worlds.
Yeah. James chimed in here as well. Yeah. I'm not the greatest fan of Remender's either, but I did think he had some good, really good work on Uncanny X-Force and Low.
I mean, he's not a hack.
No, I think that's.
I don't think that's what Caleb and I are going after.
I think he's incredibly talented. I really
he's a very talented guy. It's just I gravitate towards different flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go, Steve.
I mean, I'd rather. I think he's.
You weren't thinking we were going to talk about Chaperone there.
For the vibe that
was not on my bingo card.
For the vibe that Rick Remender puts out, I would rather read Jeff Lemire. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
So.
Or as you said, Cullen Bunn.
Yeah.
Or Image Comics Matt Fraction.
Right. True.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Zdarsky.
All right. Yeah. Caleb, you have another book?
I do. So I know it's December, and I know everybody's put away their spoopy decorations, and their creepy paper, but I'm not quite done with it yet. I read a book that I absolutely adored, from both the storytelling aspect and the visual aspect. It is a horror story. It is rooted in a classic that we all, I say all, I assume all, that we all know, and I think probably most of us love. And that is a new take on the Dracula mythos. This book is the recent, I don't know what to call it. This is going to be a 4-part series. They're doing it in graphic novel format, but this is book 1, Dracula the Impaler, by the incomparable Matt Wagner and the amazing Kelley Jones, with colors by Jose Villarrubia. I want to say this: over the past few years, I should say letters by Rob Lee. Over the last few years, Kelley Jones has popped up in a couple different places, some anthologies and stuff like that, and he hadn't looked great. And I love Kelley Jones. I think Kelley Jones, like you look at some of his stuff throughout history, an amazing artist, and I adore some of the stuff that he puts out. But time has its toll on everybody, right? And so he just hasn't looked as great. Kelley Jones is not. You'd be hard pressed to convince me that Kelley Jones has looked better than this. He's looked peak in this book. Like, this book is up to par with some of the stuff that he did before. This is amazing work. This is truly insanely amazing work. There are pages in here that I'm trying to figure out, if I did not know they were in this book, I'd be trying to figure out what issue of Sandman they were in. They are outstanding. So we all know Dracula, right? We all know the mythos of Dracula. We all know, well, actually, I think more people are familiar with the film than they are the book. There's a lot of stuff in the films that people just miss altogether, or that assume are in the books and are just not. That Coppola did his thing. Matt Wagner gives a take on this, right? He's like, well, what was in the Dracula book? How did that work? Well, the Dracula book, if you've ever read it, it's an epistolary tale, right? It's told through letters. But you know who's not actually in most of the story? Dracula. Yeah, Dracula's not in most of the story. It's all about most of the people who surround him, right? He's this kind of ethereal figure, this monster, this horror in the background, which is also, it's suspense that makes it work. It's aliens, right? It's alien in the spaceship that you don't see very rare. But that's what makes it good. That's why it works. And there's 100,000 different Dracula tales, different takes on it. So in kind of this, in some back matter in this book, Matt Wagner is kind of, and by the way, his name is Matt Wagner. It's not Mr. Wagner. It's Matt Wagner. I will always call him Matt Wagner by his first and last name. Even if I meet him, he'll just be, hi, Matt Wagner. I'm Caleb. But he's kind of talking about, how can I make this different? What are we going to see? Well, I want to tell a story about where he came from, about who he was. I want to kind of take the history that we know, because we now know more about who Count Dracula, who Vlad Dracul was in history than maybe even Bram Stoker did at the time that he wrote this novel. So he said, I want to take this and I want to build that mythos and maybe talk about where he came from and how he came to be, and kind of flesh that character out. And he'd been wanting to do some work with Kelley Jones forever, and they joked about it. And he finally got around to, actually, it was on a social media post where they were like, man, we've really got to do something. He's like, I've got something for us. Let's go ahead and do this. And we all know that, I mean, if you've read Grendel, Matt Wagner loves vampires. Like, he's got a big thing for them. So they got together and wrote this book. And it does pull a lot from history. It talks a lot about the Order of Dracul. It talks about a lot of the people who were in this army, and the Ottoman Empire, and how they sacked a lot of this area that would become Turkey, and who these folks were. And it also brings in the fact that, in order to, the people who were dissenters, he shoved them on stakes. Like, he murdered people that were his own to scare the folks away. Did some really diabolical things. And so he plays on that. So the book opens up and they are being attacked. The Ottoman Empire is coming in to ransack folks and do their thing. And he's got a plan, though. So without spoiling too much, him and his closest advisor get together and they're like, okay, we need a lookalike. And so they get a lookalike and they bring him out and they're like, hey, we're going to lose this fight, right? But they're going to lose the battle. They're trying not to win the war. So unfortunately for old dude, who I don't even know if he has a name, he gets beheaded, right? Dracula cuts his head off because they need him to think that it's him. And they slink off and he hides. Here's the plan, right? They know they don't have the numbers to win. They don't have the manpower. They can't win by conventional means. So they need to go in and they need to use trickery, right? They've got to do something. And Dracula is going to pull from the dark arts. He thinks he knows where an old crone is, an old witch who lives in the woods, and he's going to go convince her, and she's going to take him down, not the witch's road, but this path towards the devil. He wants to eventually make a deal with the devil, and he's going to see if he can get away with it. And I think he thinks he can, right? And so he finds this old lady in the woods, and she's an old crone, right? She's just decrepit, and she's like, yeah, no, I can give you what you want, but you're gonna have to give me something beforehand. And he's like, well, yeah, name it. And she's like, I want your seed. And so basically, she's just gonna fuck Vlad for like the whole night, and get a belly full of Vlad the Impaler baby juice. And he's like, if this is what I got to do, I'll just do it. And then she, turns into a young voluptuous woman that there's going to be some enjoyment there. That's not her, by the way. Steve just showed up to grab it. That's somebody else. And so he does the deed. She gets him there, and all of a sudden she's not wrong, right? She fulfills her end of the bargain. She introduces Vlad the Impaler to the devil, who, by the way, appears as a child, a very feisty child, and is going to teach Dracula possibly all the dark arts that he needs. But Dracula's not alone. Satan has amassed all of these other people who are looking for the same thing, and he brings them to effectively a school. They are going to study in Satan's library. He's going to give them a certain amount of time to figure things out. They can't help one another and they can't hinder one another, but they can do free reign. Dracula excels at this, right? Also meets a woman, somebody he's not, who's having his way with. And so they build a relationship. But look, once you dance with the devil in the pale moonlight, so to speak, to bring up a movie reference, you gotta pay for it. And he does. And he has to earn the respect of Satan in a way by doing some stuff that are not what you would do to people that, this is not a friendly story. This is not a friendly guy. So he does what he has to do. And effectively, that's how he brings the curse upon himself and becomes a drinker of blood. He takes the life force on, and that's part of the price that he has to pay for the thing. And he becomes a monster, right? And he learns to use these special powers. And at the end of book 1, he is going to get ready to. He's not quite ready to embark and go do what he needs to do to get his kingdom back, but he's taking steps in strides. He's done things that he's not proud of, but he also doesn't care. He's got nothing else to lose. So I thoroughly enjoyed this take on it. I love seeing Matt Wagner kind of develop something and play. I like stories like this, and Star Wars stories do a lot of the same things, right? They put you in the middle of two hard points in a narrative, right? This is in between, A New Hope, and this is, it's in between A New Hope and it's Empire, right? So you've got endpoints on this, but you get to play around with it. You get to do things with it, and he's doing this, and he's building a mythos on there that you know where it ends. So it's fun to see how he gets there. Kelley Jones' art is horrific. His, I love his camera angles, and I don't know what else to refer to them as. He does odd angles on the way that he's showing you body types and viewpoints. These people he shows you their warts and all. They are not pretty. This is not a pretty world. This is not something that's glossy and shiny. It is dark, even in just the real world where there's not monsters and devils and stuff like that. It's just a hard world, and it's muddy and it's ugly and it stinks and it's medieval, right? And Kelley Jones is the perfect artist for that, and just gives you so much to play off of. There's some stuff in here. I'm just like, man, this is Kelley Jones channeling Norm Brayfogle, and it just makes me tingle in special places. And I thought it was great. I cannot wait for book 2. I don't know when it's going to come out, but this is good stuff. If you're a horror fan, if you're a Dracula fan, if you're a fan of Matt Wagner, if you like old school Kelley Jones, man, don't walk, run to Amazon, run to your local bookstore, run to Discount Comic Book, get this in your hands. It is awesome. I've read it 3 times front to back. Just can't stop reading it. There's gratuitous nudity, right? There's just fantastic violence. There's tons of Kelley Jones titties, right? Like there's no peen. I'm a little I hope we get peen in book 2. I want to see peen. We deserve that from Kelley Jones, but we're gonna get there. So, but yeah, man, just go have fun. And again, Jose Villaruba had a blast with the colors. It looks like an old school book. It really does. It's just could sing its praises all night long.
It looks like an issue of Hellblazer, or this kind of from like it. What is this with like early 90s or mid 90s? Vertigo, apparently.
The Dreaming. This really looks like
Yeah.
The Dreaming.
Yeah, no, it does. It's got Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
This is one of those rare circumstances where I didn't pre-order a Matt Wagner book.
Okay.
And I love the man.
I know you do.
Oh. But it was also something like Caleb, you perfectly said it's like it's a story we're used to. I was like, oh, Dracula, you're right. So I decided for this one I was going to wait for a collected edition, which probably won't come out until 2029. When you were asking about when the next book is available, I believe it's October of next year.
Okay.
You can do the Orlock Press Kickstarter now for that. But it just felt to me like this is something, and this is just, it's tying back to a lot of things that we said. This is the kind of thing where I would prefer to read it in one go.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And I think for other people, no, the year breaks between the books will be fine. I imagine if it's collected, it probably will not be cheap at 450 pages. About what are you there? It's like about 112 or so.
That's what I was pulling to look up right now.
So I imagine it's going to be a hefty edition, but I do think I get a lot more out of it reading it collected in a collected fashion.
Unfortunately, it's not paginated, but I'm going to guess that it's well over 200 pages, and
I didn't think it was that much.
It might not. It may be like 140. I don't know. I mean, it's not small, right? I mean,
the Kickstarter said 112.
Okay, 112.
Yeah.
I exaggerate sometimes. No, I honestly didn't know. It is, for me. It's collected edition size. It's OGN size as far as page count.
It's a nice format.
It is. It's a very good format. Yeah. As far as this, like I said, you get, and I'll just show you some goodness out of here. You get some wonderful, you get wonderful writing. You get good back matter. The back of the book, you get to see. You get to see Kelley Jones' goodness. You get to see process and script and stuff like that. By the way, for any of you, and I'm going to say this, I have no expertise in the matter, and I probably don't have any right to say this, but as somebody who's made an effort to write comics before, this is invaluable. Like getting scripts and seeing how comics are actually written is invaluable. So if you want to write comics, look at this stuff. Go get scripts and see how it's done. It's great.
This is something that I will eventually read. It's tabled for now.
I was really worried that this was going to be Mike Mignola Dracula, right? It's a great artist that I want to see just kind of being retold. But this is not. By the way, I've got those issues. I think that's a fantastic read. I love looking at it. That Topps put out, by the way, I think is who it was. But this was not that. It's a whole different. It's a brand new thing, right? And it's fun. It's fun. Just made me feel it was fun, right? I had fun reading a comic.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I had fun with my last comic that I'm going to talk about.
How much fun?
Don't go there. Now you guys know there were certain clicks that shut down for me with the pandemic. My interest in independent comics and slice of life shit went down, and I just wanted, cosmic battles and people with power and that kind of shit. And I kind of stayed there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, I also don't live with blinders on. So my book is Being Gordy. It's an 80-page premiere issue. It's billed as a situation comedy. And this is written by my friend Dave Gordon. I met Dave online. I can't remember for New York Comic Con if it was for Len Wein to sign or James Robinson to sign, but it was one of the two. We were online. We started talking, and I've maintained communication with him over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And he is he's in marketing and graphic design professionally, and he's had this project Being Gordy that he has been percolating for a long time. Originally he wanted to do it as a newspaper strip. As newspapers have died, strips kind of did too, apart from some very big marquee names. And he basically reformatted it that it was going to be a series of graphic novels, and take that form. As I said, it's been gestating for a long time, but it's finally out. Being Gordy, a situation comedy. And this is the most important part of this, because if you do approach this as one of those live with a studio audience situation comedies, that's kind of how you have to approach it in reading this. And I think it will be a very fun experience. So what do we have with Being Gordy? Well, Gordy is a comic book artist and writer in New York City. And you'll see he's there with his two best friends, Paige, and the gentleman that's on his right over there, that's Max. And Gordy lives in a very nice apartment in the Upper West Side. So they're wondering, how did this happen? So how does the guy that writes and draws independent comics, the most notable of which is titled Irving Moskowitz, Man of Mystery, how is he able to afford this apartment? Well, in the Being Gordy universe, there was a film, and this is for real, this did come out. There was a film in, what was the year there? I thought I had it up, but it fell down. 2011, that Tom Hanks started and directed, co-wrote the script with Nia Vardalos of whatever, the Greek Wedding. What was the name of the movie?
My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Big Fat Greek Wedding. With Julia Roberts, where he played someone who was in the Navy, who was middle-aged, who decided to go back to school. Name of the movie was Larry Crown. In the Being Gordy universe, the first film was a massive hit, unlike the real world. And Steve, if you can go to that next graphic. So there's not that one, that's the Friends. Next one, please. So in this world, there is a Larry Crown film series. And these are very big films. They're terrible, but they're very big films. So you can see the immediate sequel was Larry Crown, A Fistful of Crown, and then Larry Crown's Disco Bar Mitzvah. And then it takes a horror turn with Larry Crown's Theater of Blood. So there is a connection between Gordy and these films, which I won't necessarily spoil too much, but over some machinations, his friend Paige decides she's going to move into his apartment with him. So and Larry Crown ties into this. I don't want to spoil it, but it's cool. So they begin to live together, and it's almost that adage of don't do business with friends or relations. Don't become roommates with one of your best friends, and nothing goes right. And they're both miserable, and one of them takes steps to end it. But there is forgiveness in the end, like there always is in situation comedies. And, if you want to go back to that last picture, that's a picture of me and Dave. I backed the Kickstarter for this, and I'm really glad I did, because it was nice to read a comic that was just in intent and structure meant to put a smile on your face. Fantastic back matter, and I really hope that this takes off for him. He's going to start doing convention appearances in 2025. And that's my second book I wanted to talk about, Being Gordy, a situation comedy. You can go to the Being Gordy Facebook page and some of the other social media spots if you want to get a copy. But it was nice to have something that was slice of life, but in a little different angle than I'm used to. So it was very nice to put the the superheroes down for a little bit and read a book that I enjoyed. I don't do that often these days. So,
well, I like that you have a personal connection to it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's those kinds of like sitcom style books. I would throw Dykes to Watch Out For up there as kind of as one of those. The Unfabulous Life of Ethan Green. I mean, those are two very very gay examples of that.
Yeah, very gay.
But very, very gay, like seminally gay. But at the same time, it is fun to sometimes read those where it's humor that's kind of similar to a TV sitcom where things kind of like don't get too serious. Even if serious things pop up, but you feel for the characters, you really enjoy kind of getting to know because they're usually just normal people who,
And his back material was just great. Talking about the road to getting this done. One particular sitcom episode, which was a very big influence on this. I hope he has a big success with that. Really do.
Awesome.
I'm going to start referring to Bill as seminally gay.
Seminally gay.
That's not inaccurate.
It
really isn't.
I'm well aware of the fact that it's not.
It's really not inaccurate.
Well, I think we're out of comics.
What?
It's a good title.
We're out of comics.
Yeah. Well, we got through our comics. It was a lot. We did 6 books.
Yeah.
And they were not small books.
And started, right. I mean, yours was 112. This was 80 pages.
Or 200.
Multiple issues for 2 of the others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got bang for your buck on this episode.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Seminally bang for your buck. All right.
I think that's something else, but yeah.
Okay, we're going to start wrapping this episode up. Before we go to our last segment of the show, we stop and talk about our geekettes. And gentlemen, do you have anything you want to show off? I have, avoiding the record store day, I do have some stuff I do want to show. Steve?
Well, I do have, well, here we go, this direction. One of my latest poster acquisitions, it is the new Avengers, number 1. That is, I believe, just came out.
I also see
and then also,
I was going to say, I see some Steve underneath that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I also got, some more Kickstarter and, Kickstarter acquisitions. Sainted Love, which is really great. A Thing Called Truth, Volume 2, which I've been waiting for a long time. I'm really excited about that one. And then, of course, Undead or Alive by frequent guest on the show, Steve Bryant. I think the last time he was on, he was talking about that book. So
I got my copy in. My copy's downstairs, but I did get it in. I adore Steve Bryant. I really do.
Oh, yeah. And it came with extra goodies, too, but I don't have those out. But it's, I got some of those, like, the classic cover card and, some other art stuff. So it was cool. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's what I got.
How about you, Caleb?
So I do. So I mentioned earlier I did not get to participate in Record Store Day, but on Saturday when we were down in South Arkansas in the booming metropolis of El Dorado, Arkansas, where a lot of my husband's family is from and they live around, I took a few minutes to sneak over to a local comic book shop that is down there. It's called Gabe's Comic Corner. It's a really great shop. I've been there a couple times. I try to go whenever we visit family just to see what they have. And they're kind of like, small town comic shop. They've got cards, they've got comics, they've got toys, they've got, a lot of stuff and very well put together, some really good showcase things. So, if you're ever in South Arkansas, you should go check it out. Actually, I found out a friend of mine, Tony Fleece, who did Stray Dogs and Ferals and stuff, was actually there not too long ago. I looked up and saw one of his books and grabbed it and was like, oh, look, he signed this. So I picked it up. So really cool little shop. So as I was looking around for Small Business Saturday, because I wanted to spend some money, I found some things I could not leave behind. And they are not comics and they're not music, but they're toys. And I'm not a big toy person, but I found, let's see if I can get this in good light, Subutai from Conan, Super 7 figure. I found the ever gorgeous Valeria figure, and then certainly not to be left out, I found Conan figure, and all of them are if you remember, if you've seen the show, when they all do the war paint and when they're sneaking into Thulsa Doom's little snake pit of hell, that they do the war paint. That's them. I'd never seen these before, and I think that these are some of the coolest little figures I've ever seen, because they're a little bit niche. You have to know the movie to really know what they are. So I couldn't leave them behind. So I brought them home. I would love it if they did, and for the life of me, I'm going to be called a bad Conan fan. The wizard that they meet, who keeps him alive. And I cannot think of his name right now. I would love it if they gave us one of him in a version like this, and they may. I have not looked anything up to see if they have any other figures. I would love a Thulsa Doom like this.
Those are put out by Reaction.
Super 7. Now again, I'm not a toy guy, so I don't know.
Do they have Reaction on the lower?
Yes, Reaction.
So that's Super 7's Kenner like.
Okay.
Quarter line. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So and it's Akiro. Akiro is the wizard.
Yes, and looking at the back of it, they have there are several. They have Pit Fighter Conan, which I don't have. They do have Thulsa Doom, and they have Subutai, but not war paint. They have Subutai. That's not the version that I have. So there's 3 figures I don't have just yet. I need to see where I can find it. As always, anything with Conan is going to have heroic signatures. That's the company that does the licensing for them. Frederick Malmberg is the CEO and president of that. He's somebody I've gotten to know over the years, and I have a lot of respect for him. Should he happen to listen to this podcast, hi Fred. So hopefully you will. But check those out. It's good stuff. And then I'm going to go see if I can find 3 more figures.
Hey,
okay.
Nice.
Oh, excuse me, I'm coughing here. I'm going to continue on that line because, as I said, the Reaction line from Super 7 is heavily influenced by Kenner's 3 3/4 lines from the late 70s and early 80s, which also did extend. Another Kenner line, apart from the most famous one, which was Star Wars, was Superpowers, and that ran from 84 to 86. If I'm correct, yeah. And in the last few years, that's been revived by McFarlane Toys. So they have their own line of Superpowers toys out. And I got a whole bunch of them from my friend Mike Ryan, who's become a very big collector. And he basically gave me his like duplicates, so it's like, oh my God, I don't have to place a new order for that. But this is one I got on my own. And this is the Green Lantern, Hourman, and Starman collection, the 3-pack. And yes, the ones that you're talking about are the Justice Society.
Nice.
So, as I originally posted, I've waited a long time for this, whether you measure that by September when I pre-ordered this or from when I was 6 years old and actually discovered the Justice Society. But I'm just ecstatic. I'm really thinking about getting a second one so that I can open them up and play. And then just for another bit of fun, I did post my Record Store Day Gets on our Instagram and our other feeds and short videos. But one thing I did also pick up at Record Store Day, I just couldn't pass this up given that I'm seeing this band again next October. I got a Liam Gallagher Funko Pop. And since I've gotten this, get you there in the sunshine. I'm like, I've been doing everything in the Liam voice. Like, I want some lasagna. Everything. So, and
I think
I've got to get Noel now. I really do.
Oh yeah. I think for this one though, what's really interesting is like maybe it's just the shadow inside the box, but he kind of looks a little bit like Edna Mode, but with brown hair.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. So
I don't know. I don't know what I want more.
Scouts.
I don't know if I want to hear Edna Moan in a Gallagher voice or if I want to hear the Gallagher in Edna Moan voice. Like.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this show up. And when we do so with our last segment, which we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. and we do something very similar where we woof at something which may be comic book or comic book related, maybe a TV program or a film or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or possibly viewer, may be interested in the sampling. I'll start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week is a book, an actual book. Good old prose. However, it is for children, which means that there are some illustrations to it. And that is The Millicent Quibb School of Etiquette for Young Ladies of Mad Scientists, written by Kate McKinnon, who's one of my favorite comedians. She's amazing. She's wonderful. You might remember her from SNL or even further back, the Big Gay Sketch Show. It is absolutely hilarious. It's kind of told in the voice of, maybe Lemony Snicket a little bit. There's a little bit of Roald Dahl in there. And it's absolutely hilarious and fabulous and fun. It concerns the three Porch sisters in the early 1900s who, just suck at etiquette. But they somehow get invited to the Millicent Quibb School for Ladies of Mad Science. And Millicent Quibb herself is, of course, an interesting character. There's lots of animals, there's lots of conspiracies, there's all sorts of craziness and strange creatures, and all sorts of things that happen because, of course, why not? It's fun and wild and wacky and ends on a big cliffhanger, of course. I also had the pleasure of listening to the audiobook, which is about 9.5 hours and is read by Kate McKinnon and her sister, and is absolutely wonderful. If you get a chance to read the book, definitely read the book. If you get a chance to listen to the book, it's super fun too. And you don't miss out on the illustrations because they do send a copy of the PDF illustrations for all of them with the audiobook. So you get to enjoy both. But yeah, Millicent Quibb, definitely check it out.
Okay. Over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
My wolf of the week goes out to a person, and this person just made history by doing something awesome and just by being himself. And that is Chase Strangio. If you're watching us on here, you'll see my little tagline or whatever. Chase Strangio, and forgive me if I'm not saying that right, is the first openly trans attorney to argue a case in front of the United States Supreme Court. And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. And he did so by arguing the case that was heard in front of the Supreme Court today, where both the ACLU and the federal government are suing the state of Tennessee for passing a law that makes it illegal for trans kids to get medical care when it's agreed upon by their parents and their doctors that it's the best thing for them. So basically it blocks all health care for trans kids in the state. They cannot get them. And so they argued that case today. Now, I can go into a whole legal diatribe about what I think will happen with that case. There are some pros and some cons to it, but who knows, right? It depends on what mega donor makes a phone call, honestly, because that's where our Supreme Court is at. But not going to go there. But we now have an openly trans attorney who has argued a case in front of the Supreme Court and has made history, and that is cool. And I think that should be celebrated. So my wolf of the week goes out to Chase. Great job, and thank you for defending freedom.
Okay. I should always let you go last because you're the week around. But here we go. My wolf of the week goes out to the final episode and the final season of Superman and Lois, their season 4. Tears streaming down my face in this last episode. It is without a doubt the best final episode of any comic book related show. It is probably one of the best final episodes ever. And both this series and this season were exceptional. We had a very dark take on Superman effectively. Went to some very, I think for people that, may only have a very superficial knowledge of Superman, may have been surprised some places where the show went. Again, it deals with Superman and Lois's married life. They have 2 twin sons, and they made the decision to leave Metropolis and bring them up for their final years of high school in Smallville. And this final season also had Michael Kudlitz as Lex Luthor, probably the most terrifying version of Lex Luthor that we've had. And the series was just it was in that Rockford File area of never jumping the shark. I mean, it kept its quality up through all 4 seasons. And I'm going to miss this show a lot, but at the same time, they had the opportunity to tell the story they wanted. I don't know if we really would have benefited from more, because not every show gets to complete the arc that they want to. And this show definitely did. And I tell you, people, when you watch that last episode, make sure you have tissues at the ready, because the last 22 minutes, you just don't stop. It's an absolutely beautiful treatment for this character. And the end of the DC Comics era on the CW as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that changing. But given the new makeup of the ownership of the CW network, whether you view that as starting with Smallville or view that starting with Arrow, it's been a very lengthy run. And if this is the coda for that particular dynamic, you cannot ask for a better one. It was an absolutely beautiful episode.
So we've got some comments on this. Cliff on Comics, Superman and Lois with a big old heart. Bizarro World wasn't necessarily the greatest.
No, but they got out of there fairly quick. They got out of there quick enough. Yeah.
But great series ending for sure. And then we've been joined by Joel the Geek, seasonings to you as well, spices maybe. And you're coming on the
Rockford. Yeah. Yes. I just say that because the Rockford Files is known as a show that never jumped the shark. That's known as it never went kaput, So I just that was just one that I threw out. Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Comic Book Bears. We'll have another episode for you this year, and then that's it. And then we'll return next year with episode 300. Ooh, we got to do something a little special for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But keep in mind, also pay attention to our social media stuff. We're posting little vignettes, little videos and stuff, so you can get non-podcast related. I mean, it's related to the podcast, but it's stuff that we're doing outside the podcast that keep up with our comings and goings and comings, if you will.
And because of the video restrictions on Blue Sky, I've been keeping mine under a minute.
Yep.
So they're short blasts. So
works pretty well. Keep them short. So little comic recommendations, things that we're reading, things that we're doing, things that we're seeing.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, you have yourselves a good fortnight. Hopefully we will be together either 2 weeks from today or 2 weeks from the next day.
Yeah.
Right?
Excellent.
Yeah. For a Christmas show.
Have a holly jolly.
All right. Until next time. Oh, I didn't do the whole spiel.
You did not.
Do the spiel.
My Lord. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on most media outlets as Comic Book Bears, apart from Facebook, where you can find us as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to write to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to watch us, you can always do so by subscribing to our YouTube channel. If you joined us through Facebook Live tonight, thank you. And we'll be back again in about 2 weeks. Until that time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
If you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. Again, we'll be back in about 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Wolf!